I'd like to address one more time the issue of whether the use of drugs, whether criminal or not, is victimless, and then ask a question about it and about public policy that we might design to help avert it. It seems to me that Professor Baker's question about what we would be like if we had a society where 50% of the people were dope heads is a good one. In fact, we have a society like that, or at least segments of society where the number's probably not 50%. But I'm referring to our inner cities. I'm referring to an environment in which, for example, my brother-in-law teaches at an inner city school in Chicago. He teaches 200 students. He has 3 parents show up for parent-teacher conferences. I ask him what his students are like, and he tells me that he can't reach them, that it is, despite his best efforts, and he's a very dedicated and nationally certified teacher, glorified babysitting. Why can't you reach them? Because there is no parental involvement at home. Where are their parents? Well, of course, very often their fathers aren't there. And what about their mothers? He said, let me tell you about the 17-year-olds I deal with and what their lives were like at 8, 9, and 10 when they were foraging in dumpsters, looking for food, or begging milk money in the street because mom hadn't put anything in the refrigerator for a week because she spends every waking hour planning the procurement, procuring, and using drugs. Those children, these classrooms full of children, are victims of that conduct. You can say, well, we should deal with the conduct and we should deal with the hopelessness, but the hopelessness doesn't end there because I personally have worked with a 16-year-old heroin addict from one of the wealthiest zip codes near Chicago. Kid with a horse farm to go to on the weekend, lovely home, best schools, who finally stopped coming to the substance abuse program because he decided he still wanted to be out there. He was finally stopped, not from using drugs, but by his parents from jumping in front of an oncoming commuter train. His parents' lives are wrapped around trying to rescue their son. Their family is on hold. So it is mildly insulting, I think, for those people to hear that they are not victims of this conduct, or that there isn't some major interference being caused by the use of drugs themselves. Most of the debate today
is there a question here?
There is a question. Most of the debate has been about relative levels of enforcement, state, federal, and how much we should put on it. And the panel also talked a little bit about other means of enforcement. I'm reminded of Nancy Reagan's.
I'm looking for the question.
The question is whether there is any evidence that bully pulpit moral suasion, such as Nancy Reagan's Just Say No campaign, works, and whether we ought to see that more from the current administration. I'd intended to direct it at Mr. Cuéllar, where he's still here.
That's why the administration would
support that.
I don't know about bully pulpit, but I would say this. A public health approach has significantly reduced the amount of cigarette smoking in the United States, and as a consequence, fewer people are suffering very severe health consequences because of cigarette smoking. If you go back to earlier periods in American history, the level of drunkenness was far greater than it is today. It remains a significant problem. We have people killed all the time by drunk drivers. But there have been a variety of campaigns that have reduced the level of drunkenness. And we've essentially done these things by not criminally punishing people for use of cigarettes or use of alcohol. We've limited the criminal punishment to such things as, say, drunk driving, where there is a direct threat of injury to other persons. And it seems to me that we ought to learn from the successes that we have had in dealing with the harms caused by alcohol and the harms caused by cigarettes. There's a lot more that could be done along the same lines, but we have had significant successes, and I think it's possible to have significant successes in dealing with drugs as well as with those other forms of substances that cause a level of dependency.
Are you saying that your organization wants to engage in a public campaign against drug use?
Well, we have, for example, a program. Well, the answer is yes. The largest grant we ever gave in the United States was $125 million to set up an after-school program in the city of New York. It had to be matched by donations from others of 3 to 1, and we got the donations. So the total amount was $500 million. One of the reasons we set up the after-school program was because we believed that a time when children were most at risk of taking drugs was in between the time that they ended school and their parents came home from work. We have a $10 million drug treatment program underway right now. We also sponsored an after-school program in the city of Baltimore, and we have funded treatment programs over an extended period for the last 12 years in the city of Baltimore. So we have spent enormous amounts of money trying to deal with these questions through public health approaches, through treatment approaches,
just real quick,
and through diverting people from drug-using patterns of behavior.
Okay, so are you saying, as in the successful cigarette campaigns, it's basically cigarette smoking is bad? Are you saying that drug use is bad? Is that your message?
I'm against drug use.
Can I just make one quick point?
30-second.
Yeah, 30-second point that maybe crystallizes also our distinction. Take the cigarettes. Multiple regression studies show the power of education, but the single biggest factor reducing underage smoking is the price of cigarettes. Every time it goes up 10%, underage smoking goes down 7%, a supply control measure. Think of the other thing. Yes, you need education, but if you light up a cigarette in here today, it's a crime. Think about the issue of alcohol. People go to jail for drunk driving. You are, and I am old enough to remember when One for the Road wasn't a joke, it was what people did when they drove. We use education in conjunction with sticks.
We don't
to help
punish
change
people
behavior,
for possessing a pack of cigarettes or for possessing a bottle of wine.
But you do using them. If you light one in this room, it's a crime in New York.
And I think there are reasonable forms of regulation which are appropriate.
Thank you. We're at an end.